can understand how differently Latin is constructed than Hebrew, Semitic language, and I can compare. But when you take, for instance, when you use biblical language within your writing, and then the English translator, they trying to find an equivalent for this biblical language. Usually they go to King James Version because this was the epitome of translation of the Bible into English. But King James Version is much more closer to spoken English than it's to Old English. So sometimes the expression become very, they lose their uniqueness. It works on the other way around sometimes, because when you try to translate English writers that were influenced by King James Version into Hebrew, then suddenly in Hebrew they become less contemporary than in English. Suddenly they are very heavy, and there are this kind of and for me, I like to play with it, and I like to play with moving between different layers of Hebrew very quickly, without any moving. So especially in writing prose, in poetry, if the transition are much more smooth, but in prose you can break it, and like in one paragraph you can describe something in a very poetical language that kind of derives from Jewish scriptures, and then you go to spoken language in which the character speaks, and this huge gap between the languages. And for me, this is the effect that I'm exploring. What it does to you when you move between this certain modes of expression within language. And I believe that good translators, they are not seeking just to tell you what the work is about, but also trying to reproduce this kind of effect. And sometimes it's successful. There is a funny saying about Yiddish, that certain works sound better in Yiddish than in the original language, because Yiddish is much more suitable for these works. And sometimes I feel that certain works are improved by translations. I hope not mine, because the translators sometimes understand the instincts of the writers better than they understand themselves. So for me, I think it was an alter ego when I was trying to find my own voice in writing. And it partly has to do with my biography, because it was my religious upbringing was mostly through my father, which was very keen on me becoming a rabbi. So I had this largely religious education, either by studying text with him or going to other teachers to study with them. And he kind of used, when I was young, a child, I had a very good memory, that I could read text and remember most of it. It wasn't photographic, but I could just process well, and I could. And much of the early stages of studying in religious studies is about learning text by heart and knowing how to cite them afterwards. So he used this kind of my ability and sent me a lot to quizzes. That we have usually in Jewish societies. We have this kind of what's called it's kind of a competition in which the participant asks questions about the scriptures and you have to answer. And then there always a winner, and it's lots. So he sent me to lots of these competitions, and I had always to to be ready. So I have to go all these quizzes and so I studied a lot. But the other part of my literary education, or my education for my text, were through my sister, my older sister. She really taught me how to read books and understand them. And she was taking me to the library, to the public library, and she would recommend books, and I read them, and when we discuss them, we would discuss them. But when I started writing, the first thing that I had to do for me was trying to escape my father's world, because the religious upbringing is great for writers because it expands your vocabulary, it expands your knowledge with language, but it also restricts the thing that you can speak about and what you can express, because modern literature is really based about the individual voice, and religious literature is founded on the communal language. You write maybe pirutim. You know what pirutim? It's the religious song. It's supposed to be performed in either in synagogue or in all these kind of gatherings. You don't write for yourself. You write for the community. And you write for your community. Your personal experience is not important. What's important is the glory of God, the way that human life is always an expression of a bigger metaphysical system or religious system. So trying to find my own voice, I was trying to escape also this religious world. So in the books that I read with my sister, I found this story of Icarus, which for me was a formative story about a boy trying to escape his father's ruling. His father saying to him, the father is trying to change him into something that is not. He gives him wings, and he tells him how to fly. And Icarus says to Daedalus, okay, you gave me wings, but you cannot tell me what to do with them. So he flies, he's fascinated by the sun, and then he dies. And for me it was kind of a romantic mythos about about the tragic form of life in which you try to escape the things that balance you, and then you pay the ultimate price, which is your life. And in my first collection of poetry, I was trying to understand this existence. In my second, I was trying to depart from this kind of, and I really managed to escape from this, or reject this way of thinking, when I started to write fiction. And in my first novel, I was looking for another archetypical structure would help me to think about my character. And then, without really realizing, I was using the stories of the other from the Talmud. The other. There is a figure in the Talmud that's called Elisha ben Avoya. And he was part of the 4 sages that went into the Pardes, which Pardes is like it's the orchard of knowledge, of mystical knowledge. And every one of them has had another fate. One of them died, one of them lost his sanity, one of them, which is Rabbi Akiva, he went through the experience untouched, and the 4th one, Elisha ben Avoya, lost his faith. And since he's going into the orchard, going into the Pardes, he was named the other. So afterwards, there are story about the other.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was reading the other day about that.
So my character became Elisha ben Avuya, and my first character that I created in fiction was a detective that his name was Elish, which is a short for Elisha, and he combined two for me archetypical figures. One was Elisha ben Avuya, and the other was also another Elisha, which was Elisha the prophet. And they're kind of opposite figures. The first one is the rebel, the one that rejects all the system that was given to him, and he becomes the other. And the other one is the one that wants to be a better prophet than Eliyahu, who was his mentor, and he wants to excel within the tradition. So the detective is made of two really opposite urges, to be part of the community and being an important part of the community, and rejecting the community and its history. And it was kind of ironic that I came back to my father's world and tried to invent myself anew after understanding that the story of Icarus cannot be my story, because it's a story about death. And I wanted to change. I didn't want to die. In a way, most Israeli people, for me, also see and idealize Israel and not the real Israel. And I think that most of them grew up, or their education was successful in a way that, or indoctrination was successful in a way that they are really preferring the image to the reality. And it's, one of the major endeavors in constructing or inventing the Zionist movement was first understanding what is a state of Jewish people, what is the state of Israel, so they kind of came up with some utopic ideas and some unrealistic ideas, and then they came to Israel and they started to build a society, and it didn't fit, and some of them became either disillusions, and some of them kind of stick to the idea and trying to deny reality. The greatest blindness that they kind of adopted is there is a population in Israel which is not Jewish. There is a huge Arab population with its own history, with its own stories and traditions about what's going on in Israel, with its own names for places, with its own thinking about geography, which is not the mythical Israel that's been reproduced throughout the ages. Jerusalem is the holy city for Jews, and then there are these places in which our forefathers used to walk and got the visions. No, they have other stories. They have, and for me, I think because my parents came from Morocco, and the population that came from Morocco, North Africa, is Muslim countries, was considered in Israel for a long time, and some says that it's still considered a second grade population, in which they are not really belonging to Israel, and they have to do a huge effort in order to integrate. Nothing is natural for them. Whether they have to study how to be modern Jews, the way that Zionism understands the modern Jews. And because I was also, when I also went through the Israeli education system, and I had to study all these values. And when I was 16, I was starting to think about whether I really belong there, and I felt I don't belong to Israel. My parents didn't get to fulfill their dreams because they came from Morocco. I looked around me and I saw that people, I read books about Israel reality, and I don't find myself in these books. And in a way that people would say things like, the Jews from Arab countries or Muslim countries are not really Jews. And I said, well, that the Jews first went to places that now are our country. In a way, they are closer to original Jews or the original Hebrews than people that came from Europe. So how can you say that Judaism is yours? What about my heritage of Judaism? I got an education that is a Sephardic education. It's not Ashkenazi education about in Jewish law, and I know stuff that you don't know. So I started exploring that. And later, it took me a while to come to terms with it. But
sorry.
when I started writing, poetry and understanding that it creeps into my poetry and then into my fiction, I started to ask myself, how do I create an alternative narrative to the Zionic narrative in which that one of the most important history that happened to the Jewish community was the Jewish mystic tradition that came from the parts of Morocco, and try to explore it. So when I meet with people that have this glorified image of Israel, I start to, it's not that you don't see it. It's I didn't see it for a long time.
What is it that you thought was a shadow? Or are you talking about something specific? Or is it more general?
The first thing for me was that I was trying to do I had a certain project in this book. I was trying to find a way to express my existence without all the filters that I usually use to understand ourselves. We have this kind of big frameworks with which we work all the time. Like we have the biographical framework, in which the way that we learn how to tell a story within time. So we were born, we went through several experiences, and the experiences shaped us, and so we became the person that we are. And then we have the historical framework, in which we say we belong to a certain community, and this community has certain roots, and these roots are kind of the influence of being in the world. And then there's the miracle.